Indian Carnatic music from our grandfather Palak Shri T.R. Rajaram. We are from Chennai.
Namaskar and welcome to this evening session of Namaste 2020, brought to you by the Center for Soft Power with support from the ICCR and also S. Vyasa University. This evening session is about weaves and fashion. We have had a wonderful 3 weeks, a lot of learning for all of us, and the heritage of this country is simply mind-boggling. And I felt that I had to wear the sari today because this is 125 or 130 years old. It's a weave made in Kanchipuram, and I can't find another one, another substitute for this. It is, these weaves have a legacy that is left behind them. And Mahatma Gandhi made this whole thing about hand weaving a tradition. It's for us, every act of craft in this country is not just a craft, but it is very meditative. It's an inner journey that we have. And we just had a beautiful session this morning called Kavacha, all about jewelry. So we find that even wearing jewelry is not just an external adornment, but it's an adornment of the Atma, the temple that holds the Atma in it. So everything for us is divinity. And the craftsman is somebody who has a wonderful relationship with his thread. And that is the sutra that holds us all together. Having said this, I'd like to welcome all of you on board. And I would like to say a few words about Shri Umang Hutheesing, who is the chair for today. And before that, I would like to thank the two young ladies, Soumya and Shweta, who come from a wonderful heritage and tradition of musicians. They are the great-granddaughters of Sangeeta Kalanidhi Palgat Shri Mani Iyer, and the grandchildren and disciples of Palgat Shri T.R. Rajaraman. That was a wonderful start, Kriti, on a beautiful Kriti to bring this peace and quiet to the whole evening. I met Umang Hutheesing about 2 years ago at a conference, and I really liked the way he expressed India's soft power. And I was waiting for an opportunity to call him for something like this. And well, I love calling him Bhaiya because he has a lot to add, like a wonderful brother. So Umang Hutheesing is on the governing board of the Ahmedabad Education Society and a managing trustee of the Hutheesing Visual Arts Center, and most importantly is the president and fifth generation of Hutheesings to manage the Hutheesing Design Company and Studio from the very same historic location, Jai Singh Bhai Niwadi. He is also the founder president of the Hutheesing Heritage Foundation, which has restored the Hutheesing Haveli and preserves the Hutheesing art collection. He has collaborated with the International Foundation Muse Yves Saint Laurent in Paris and the National Museum of Bahrain, the Baroque Museum in Mexico and the Miho Museum in Japan, and the Chhatrapati Shivaji Vastu Sangrahalaya in Mumbai, where he has exhibited over 300 pieces showcasing the cultural heritage designed by him from the Hutheesing collection. I will give it over to you, Umangji, so you can take it forward and introduce your panelists. Thank you and namaskar once again.
Namaste, everybody, and good evening, Jija, as I would affectionately like to address my elder sister, who has been very kind to honor me with this chair for this evening. Also on our seminar are 4 very dynamic young panelists, and I'll give you a brief of how we have selected them and the reason. Well, Jawaharlal Nehru, at India's independence, had said the history of India may well be written with textiles as its leading motive. And here we have, from our legacy and history, a very rich abundance of soft power, our legacy. And these are in 3 different fibers. You have wool, which translates to Pashmina, the finest. Then you have cotton, and we have silk. Now, but Aditya from the north, in the hills of Kashmir, is going to speak about how he has transformed this wool and Pashmina into the magic that he weaves and is admired across the world. Palak from the east, we talk about silk and the zari and the traditions of wonderful ghats of Banaras on the Ganga, which is a holy city and a great soft power, and how she has brought it into the contemporary world with amazing grace and beauty. Vidhi from the west, from the sand-blessed and sun-soaked lands of Rajasthan, brings us the Kota saris and the Kota fabrics and her exquisite poetry that she has written with the weaver's hair. And Prasan from the south, who works with cotton and weaves the Madras checks, which is also a form of handloom, and has won the admiration of people across the world and sells in Bergdorf and Neiman Marcus. I'm very honored and humbled to have these panelists with me. Because this is not a seminar that we are going to sit together and debate, what I have thought about is that each panelist will talk for 10 to 15 minutes about their journey, the history of the fabric, how it has become globally important, their role and inspiration, how they got it started, and brought new dimensions within the framework of the weavers there, and their vision forward. Also, how they have influenced and brought a better life and livelihood to the weavers in the community where they work. This is a very important thing, and with that, our country rises and marches forward. With that, I have introduced the panelists, and I would like to take it forward, Vijayalakshmi ji, with your permission, and bring the panelists in.
Yes,
shall we start with the north and introduce Aditya? Aditya?
Yes, absolutely. Would you like, hello?
Yes, now we would like to, you to start, because we can't see each other, and there's a time lag between the conversation. We'll switch our microphones off so there's no noise distribution, and you will have the center stage and talk for the next and make your presentation, not presentation, your monologue instead of a dialogue because of the circumstances, for the next 15 minutes, and tell us about your journey and the wonderful products you have made, the honors you have achieved, because you make the finest Pashmina in the world, and the Ministry of Textiles has acknowledged that nobody views anything as fine, and nobody views as embroideries like you do anywhere in or around Kashmir or anywhere in the world. So I'm humbled to have you here, a very fine man of exquisite taste and exquisite craft from Kashmir. Thank you, Aditya. Please take the stage.
Thank you, Umang. Vijay Lakshmi ji, would it be possible to have a presentation on there, which I might have sent? That would sort of act as a nice cue for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I've structured my 10-15 minutes in order to give people an overview of what Pashmina is, what is the difference between Pashmina and Kashmir, the influence that it's had over the world, and what we are doing. So Pashmina comes from the Pashmina goat. It inhabits the mountains of Ladakh, the mountains of Tibet, and it's usually the next slide, please. And it's usually a nomadic community called the Changpas who have been rearing the Pashmina goats as a tradition for the last 500 to 600 years, as you would see on the next slide. We can move just a slide forward. Yeah, exactly. So this is a fantastic picture of a Changpa girl. So this is a tribe that has been rearing the Pashmina goat. Now, one of the things that people talk about is the difference between Pashmina and Kashmir, and it's a confusion that's always been there. And I'll just give you a very brief background of this. If we could move 2 slides ahead. Yes, this is the global. This is the annual global clip of the amount of cashmere that is produced. It's 6,500 tons. The little dot that you see there at the bottom, 40 tons. That's 0.75%, less than 1%. That is Pashmina. Now, to simplify it, I would say all cashmere is Pashmina, but all Pashmina is not cashmere. Pashmina is the finest grade of cashmere fiber on the planet and is available in Ladakh on the plateau of the Changtang. Now, we've had a long history with Pashmina and how Pashmina has led to wars in the past. And this is interesting because a lot of people don't really know about it. So if we go to the next slide, this is the first war in which Pashmina played a very, very important role. It was the Battle of Leh in 1684. The next slide, please. Yeah, the Battle of Leh in 1684. So it was the king of Leh who needed protection from the Tibetan invasion that was happening, and he took help of Aurangzeb. And that is when the Mughal Empire extended all the way there. And the primary part of the peace treaty that was signed later was that all Pashmina from Western Tibet would find its way through Ladakh, while Kashmiri traders would have exclusive rights to purchase the Pashmina from Ladakh. Now, a lot of people did not like this treaty. So there therefore happened another war. That was in 1842, on the next slide. This was the battle between the Sikh Empire and the Qing dynasty, the Qing dynasty of China, and the Sikh Empire. So the Sikh Empire, through the Dogras, in 1842, captured large parts of Ladakh. And there was the Treaty of Trishul that was signed, where again the same point of Pashmina was there. So we shall offer no hindrance to traders of Ladakh who visit our territory, so you can trade in Pashmina, and the fixed boundaries of Ladakh and keeping open the route for wool and shawl. So in 1842, you had another war where in the final treaty that was signed, Pashmina was an important thing. However, this treaty did not last very long, because a few years later, we had the second Anglo-Sikh war. So the Sikhs went to war once more, and Pashmina came into the picture once more. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that 4 years later, another big war takes place. This is when the Sikhs finally lost and to the British, and this was the end of the Sikh Empire. And of the war indemnity that was to be given to the Sikhs because this is when the Dogra dynasty, got control of Jammu and Kashmir. So the rulers of Jammu and Kashmir then had to pay a war indemnity to the British, which was 7.5 million rupees or 75 lakh Nanak Shahi rupiah, that was called those days, and an annual payment of one horse, 12 perfect shawl goats of an approved breed, which are, Pashmina goats, and 3 pairs of Kashmir shawls. In fact, when the British were handed over these Pashmina goats, and a few times before that also, there was a gentleman called William Moorcroft. He really wanted to breed these goats outside of Kashmir because it was a very lucrative trade. And they say that when these goats were being shipped to England, a lot of them could not, survive the journey. And a few that did, they were gifted by the Queen to a town in Wales. And recently, during the lockdown, you might have seen that there was a news item that made headlines that there were Kashmir goats that had descended upon a small town in Wales. Those Kashmir goats are actually descendants of the goats that were given as war indemnity to the British by the Dogra dynasty. So that's how old, the whole story of Pashmina is, and all the wars that have been fought behind Pashmina. Now, leaving the political part of it aside, and coming to Pashmina as such, Pashminas played a very important role when it comes to the development of fashion, especially. Now, there is this very simple motif, for example, which we all call the paisley, which is basically the badam. But the truth is that Paisley is a small town in Scotland, which was the first place where Kashmir shawls were imitated, and the patterns of Kashmir shawls were imitated. In fact, we as Kashmiris ourselves call the badam as a Paisley, unfortunately. But Paisleys Kashmir shawls were first imitated, and the design of the Kashmir shawl, which is with all the booties, came to be known as Paisley over time. And moreover, if you see photographs and paintings of Empress Josephine and other European royalty nobility of the time, you'd find that in every third painting, there's a Kashmir shawl that is either draped, or at the bottom of the dresses, you'll find those little booties, which are basically fragments of Kashmir shawls that have been sewed upon to dresses. So that is, in a brief, what I would say has been the history of Pashmina. So, Umang, would you like me to continue with something else, or would you like
yes,
to?
Please. You talk about the history. Now, that's one part. But we want to know how you got involved with Pashmina, what you are doing with it, how you achieve the standards that you have, and your vision and taking it to. No, tell us your entire journey. The history is one part. Now, with this rich legacy, how you, as a young Kashmiri boy who grew up with Pashmina around you, has taken this fiber and taken it to make fabrics and beauty that now rules the world in your field of domains.
Okay, I get it. So the idea came upon me. It was in 2014, and it was around Christmas time. So we wanted to. We were Christmas shopping in Amsterdam, and so we went to the Pacey Hoofdstraat, to pick up something nice, and the Kashmir scarf was on the mind. So, I already knew Kashmir and Pashmina and all of this. So it was at that time I realized that, listen, our country gave birth to the Kashmir fiber. And the reason they call it Kashmir in the Western world is because they always named it after the geographical origin of the fabric. So that's where the name Kashmir came into place. And I was wondering that why is it that there isn't that when one talks Kashmir, one talks Karyagi, one talks Loro Piana or Johnsons of Elgin, whereas when it comes to the two basic things that make a good fabric, one is the quality of raw material that goes in, and the second is how you process that raw material into a fabric, fiber to fabric, right? The best fiber is available in India, in Ladakh. And when it comes to know-how of processing it, in Kashmir, it's been done for the last hundreds of years. And why is it that the standard internationally for Kashmir is supposed to be Scottish Kashmir or a few names from Italy? That made me think that, listen, we have what it takes. So let's make it happen. Let's use a scientific approach, because that's what I felt was missing, that the entire production chain was extremely fragmented. We thought, let's vertically integrate this. create a system where we can do R&D and see what happens. So about 2 years after we started, so I basically was, living in Holland, moved back to Kashmir for this particular thing because I decided it has to start from the grassroots level up, from the fundamentals, basically. So moved back to Kashmir, and we started the company. And in 2 years, we were able to create fabric that was around 25% finer than the best that an Italian mill had ever produced. And these were Italian mills with highly complex machinery. And we did it in Kashmir using a lakdi ka charkha or a wooden charkha, you see. So we can...
Sorry, let's move on because, not going to machine fabrics or Italy, because there are many hand weaving artisans and weavers in Kashmir that weave Pashmina. I mean, so let's focus and keep it crisp because we have other 4 speakers also giving 15 minutes to each one. So I would appreciate if you'd focus on your brand, your product, how you made it, what made you achieve this, and how you're taking it forward to the places you are.
Okay, absolutely. I understand. So the focus was on creating great fabrics, which we did. Now, after that, the second thing that struck us was that so we became a company that's been supplying to many brands and boutiques across the world. Now, the second thing after getting into fabrics for us was let's get into embroideries and other value-added items, wherein we took a lot of inspiration from museum pieces. Yes.
Like, what is the general fineness of the Pashminas that are woven in Kashmir?
Okay, so basically, what in Kashmir is usually between 13 to 14 microns. That's the quality of material, whereas in the rest of the world, the best is usually 14.5 to 15. So Kashmir has a much better availability of fiber. We've been able to get fiber as low as 12.5 microns also, which is very, very low. And yes, even the same thing with spinning. Hand spinning in Kashmir, they create yarns now, which we are able to create yarns in Kashmir by hand, which are much finer than what mills in Italy can do. So the second thing we then started to do was work on embroideries, and we thought that let's focus on heritage embroideries and museum pieces. So we took inspiration from a lot of old pieces, and also inspiration a lot from Mughal, from Mughal art is what we do. So if you see the slides now, which sort of finished the presentation as well, this is the Shalimar Bagh. We could have the slides up, please.
So did you inherit this company or did you start it?
No, it was started from scratch in 2015. I did have a background in textiles because my father used to run a textile trading firm, and that's where I think I was able to sort of get the idea in 2014. But we started from scratch. We went to village. We went from workshop to workshop and understood the whole thing from the start. Weaving techniques, technicalities, everything.
So so you and your friends started it, and I know that the Ministry of Textiles they just sort of recognized you for having produced the finest microns in Pashmina, and you are researching and creating Mughal patterns on your Pashmina shawls.
Yes.
Can you tell us and tell the audience that with this beautiful product, that where are you taking it? Where did you register it? You are living between France and Srinagar. How are you linking this and taking our wonderful legacy to the furthest corners of the world, the Kuduziers of fine Pashmina?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So our bread and butter as the company is basically fabric, and that goes to different designers and boutiques all across the world. So it's from Japan to Europe to the Middle East and the United States. However, when it comes to the other thing that you mentioned, which is really high-end embroideries, which is part of our Art Revival initiative, where we're doing stuff such as up to 3,000 stitches per square inches. That's how extreme we've actually gone. And we're able to create flowers wherein each petal is less than a millimeter thick. You need a magnifying glass to see some of the embroideries. That is usually, patrons in India. A lot of Indians who live in other countries, of course, because they already have prior knowledge about these particular textiles. And now in the future, we envisage to come to market as a brand because we currently are manufacturers and we are suppliers, fundamentally. Now it's time for us to go into retail, and we shall be doing that very, very soon. We wanted to set up a foundation in manufacturing. We did that. Foundation in supply, we did that. Now the natural next progression for us is retail.
Right. Because there are lots of Kashmiri with Kashmir now being integrated as within our nation so closely, and there are a lot of young people who are going to be working with Kashmiri craft. And there are a lot of people in Kashmir who need employment and support. So this drive, what advice would you give them to the new generation of young designers and revivalists and artists to sort of achieve your standards and follow in your footsteps?
See, I think when it comes to Kashmiri craft, any Indian craft for that matter, right? The most important thing is understand the craft from A to Z. If you're making a box of paper mache, understand what kind of paper it is and what kind of brush should you use on it. If it's a fabric, understand the raw fiber, understand how the loom works. Fundamental thing. Don't become a trader from day one, because you won't be able to innovate unless you don't understand the science behind it, right? First thing is that. And then the second thing is meet, and this is the mistake that I made, meet as many people as you can who are already from the arts and crafts field. Get as much information as you can. Understand, because they've made mistakes which you don't want to make. So that's
right.
Another thing. Don't just jump into it because it seems very beautiful. Ask people, meet them. So this, and of course, then you need passion and hard work, which is common. I mean, that's nothing to be spoken about. But these two things, I would say, would be great differentiators. Understand in and outs of it, and meet as many
people. Can you share some products with us? Can we see some of your products?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you could open up the slide, I have something amazing to show you, and including that highly magnified millimeter picture. I think, Umang, you've already seen it.
Yes, and I'm a great fan of your work, and that's why you are on the panel. And I would like you to share your success story and the hard work and the beauty and the standards you have achieved with our audience.
Absolutely. If Vijay Lakshmi, if we could have the last 3 or 4 slides in, because that has some lovely pictures that we could share.
Hutheesing, can you just share the last 3 videos, the last 3 slides, please?
Yeah, you could start from the 4th last slide or the 5th last slide. We'll just quickly run through them. It'll give a really nice idea. Okay, next slide. We can move forward a few. Yeah. This is the Shalimar Bagh next in Kashmir. So what we did is we saw the motifs on the roofs. These are 400-year-old motifs. These are made by Jahangir for his wife. We used that as an inspiration and created Kani shawls out of it. Next slide, please. So we can keep on moving the slides in a few seconds. I'll narrate it because that will make it quicker and easier. So yeah, so the next slide. Yeah, so this is basically how a Kani shawl is woven. It's woven on a hand loom and it's very similar to some other Indian textiles. The next picture, please. So that's me sitting. That's when I sort of, I like to sit in the lawn and give a final inspection. So funny picture I decided to add. But that's a finished Kani shawl inspired by the 400-year-old murals on the roof. This is a silk embroidered Sozni Jamawar, wherein each square millimeter basically of the fabric has been embroidered. You cannot see the base fabric. It's that intense. Next slide, please. This is only 4 inches, and this is around 900 stitches per square inch that's been done through a needle without a tightening base for the frame, by the way. It's done with the chop, but it doesn't have, there's no tightening frame involved in Kashmiri Sozni. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a Kalam Curry. So this is basically a court scene, and this is where we use actual gold-plated thread for the jewelry of the figures, and we mimic the flow of human hair and wrinkles on cloth, and we mimic that embroidery. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so there you go. You can see even the flow of human hair has been mimicked, and the jewelry figures that you see, that's gold-plated zari. So it's hand painted and hand embroidered at the same time. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a very old naksha from the mid-1800s, which we recreated. And this is where these are the embroideries where you need magnifying glasses to reveal details. So if you could go to the next slide, and we could show you some of that magnification. So on the left is embroideries of the late 1900s, and on the right is basically embroideries that went extinct by the 1950s. So that is what we work a lot upon, and that's what we've been working on reviving. So you can see the difference on how intense one is compared to the other. Next slide, please. Okay, this is interesting. Now, this is an actual zoom. On your left, those are not centimeters, those are millimeters. So you can see the size of the finger and the size of the flowers. And on the left side, you see millimeters, a millimeter scale. So in 1 millimeter, you have an entire flower with its petals and with the border around it. So a human eye can't make out those petals. In fact, most people would need a magnifying glass to that. So this is what we're doing under the Revival project, in which we are trying to, match museum grade pieces, and in whatever cases we can, try and go beyond them in intricacy. So that would conclude my presentation of the product.
That is indeed very, very beautiful. And when you see it in reality, the magnificence of our craftsmanship and the hand and eye coordination to do that really comes to light. Thank you, Aditya, for sharing this. And
just one point I'd like to make there, Umang. When it comes to these extremely exquisite and intense embroideries, it's a meditative process for Kashmiri artisans. It's a part of the faith. Basically. You'll see them chanting Sufi, just say like it'll either be Allahu or something. They'll be in a meditative state. So sometimes if you try and shake them also, they will respond to you. And if they do respond to you, they'll be outright rude because they are in the middle of a meditation when they're doing some pieces like this. So you should come and see some of that. It's phenomenal.
Yes, I have. I've spent a lot of time in Kashmir, and God has been kind to have allowed me the privilege to see some very fine workers. But I would, of course, love to come and see your workshops and to meet you personally over there in your territory. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you, man.
Your work proves the old idiom that the finest of all instruments is still the human hand.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It has emotions, it has faith, spirit behind it. You can't match that.
The Kashmiri weaver is making finer Pashmina than Italian machines. This is kudos to our craftspeople. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Umang. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that we have done the northern territory, the Himalayan mountains and the Pashmina, let's go to the east and meet Palak in Banaras. Now, she lives on the ghats of the Ganga and has revived the trade traditions of Banaras, which is woven magic with zari and silk. And she has taken it forward in a very contemporary new way, creating a niche for herself and for her craftspeople, reviving this age-old tradition into a very, very fine art with a company called Ekaya. Her stores are fantastic. They're very contemporary. Can we have Palak, please?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, there, the beautiful woman herself now in all her glory. And she has really taken it, because if you goes to Banaras, a very great, beautiful city, we go and pray, but it is its old crowded heritage, and the weavers, and many Varanasi weavers are dying because there is very less support for hand craftsmanship and hand-woven fabrics. And Palak and her family have taken this great and important legacy and are helping the weavers to earn their livelihood with great ethics. Their stores are really beautiful, and you don't go to a sari store and expect, our vision is once you walk into Ekaya and you are transformed into a whole different world. You could be in Paris in a boutique, yet it has the Indian grace of refinement, which just wins your heart. Congratulations, Palak. I love your stores. I love your products. And of course, I love you too.
Umang, we're actually neighbors. Not many people know that me and Umang are actually neighbors. My store is right next to Umang's in Ahmedabad. So yes.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me here.
Sorry for interrupting. Just a request that nobody other than the speakers of this panelist should turn on their videos. Please don't do that, because we can't record properly then.
Can I go on?
Yes, you can go on. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No problem at all. So I would like to first of all say thank you for having me here. It has been an absolute pleasure, and you're putting me amongst all these accomplished people. It makes my heart really warm. I'd like to start off by telling my story a little bit. I'm originally from Banaras, and my parents are from Banaras. My great-grandfather actually moved from Gujarat to Banaras in search of work 120 years ago. And that's when we started working with textiles first. So our business is actually 120 years old. My great-grandfather started, my grandfather took over, my father took over, and then of course I took over. We chose Banarsi Textiles because of course it had immense, creativity and immense potential to be really taken anywhere. I don't know if everybody knows, but Banarsi Textiles are one of the few textiles in the whole world which actually uses metal to weave. And Banaras has been really famous because its textiles and its weavers can really create pretty much anything that you want to. So, I mean, that's why I feel like the sector has grown a lot because of tourism coming into Banaras a lot, and hence the weavers learning and having influence from all over the world. And plus really having the means and the creativity, the talent to really create everything. My introduction to the business happened when I was 20 years old. I actually had been accompanying my father all along when I was little to learn about the business and to just observe him. And that's when I feel like my first love affair with textiles started. I went to London to study finance because that's where I thought I was inclined towards more. So I was doing finance and accountancy, and I happened to come back to India to look for a job in London. But I accidentally happened to enter the business. My dad said, why don't you give this a chance? And there was no looking back after that. So we started Ekaya, and Ekaya was actually started out of the need to really express your full potential on what all textiles can do, what all our Banarsi textiles can do. Because my dad's a wholesaler, and we've been in the business for almost 120 years. You were being a wholesaler, you're really driven to create what your consumers want, and more often than not, consumers don't really know what they want. So you end up really making the same products, and you end up making the same quality of stuff, and you start making the same design at all points of time. For that particular purpose, we're like, why don't we expand our creativity, and why don't we sort of expand and create our own store and start really retailing what we really want to make? And hence, of course, came Ekaya. When I was in London, I was always faced with the question as to why aren't our textiles sold the way your Louis Vuitton bags are sold? Because at the end of the day, these people are banking on the craftsmen of their country. Why are we as a country looking down at our craftsmen? Why are we as a country not putting them on a pedestal like they should be, like the way your watchmakers internationally, or your furniture makers, or your Louis Vuitton? I mean, at the end of the day, it's all hand. And most importantly, why aren't the younger generation taking to saris? Why aren't the younger generation taking to textiles? Why are we embarrassed to enter a sari store? And then I realized, I'm like, there's not been much innovation since. I mean, my dad's generation and my grandfather's generation has just been repeating the pattern and doing the same thing all over again. And hence I thought it was time to like really change the way textiles marketed, who it's worn by, the way it's worn, without really disrupting the look and feel of it. So I'm a full purist, and I don't really believe in cutting the sari and making a gown, or making it easy for a person to wear. I feel coming from a purely traditional background, you're meant to wear the sari the way you're meant to wear a sari. It's 6 yards, have fun with it. You don't have to always have to wear the traditional way, but don't cut it up and don't do these things. And hence came the ideas of like really creating top of the notch customer service at Ekaya, selling your textiles like you'd sell your bags, creating different sort of marketing, ways of selling the sari, really communicating with the customers of today in the manner that they require. So that was my journey. I was all of 2021 when I started. My dreams are bigger than life. My dream is to take Ekaya international. My dream is to, of course, take our Indian textiles to the international market. Like Prasan is doing. The whole idea is, of course, to make the textiles reach the international market and not the sari. So at the end of the day, you must make the craft reach the international market. You must take it in whatever way you can. I mean, you can take your craft in the way of the shawl that you're wearing, Umang, or in form of a bag that I'm carrying, or as a necklace, as a jewelry, as a shoe. The idea is to push the craftsmen of the country to believe that they have limitless opportunities to really be present on the international grid altogether. So with that thought, of course, we started Ekaya. We now have 4 stores: Delhi, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Bombay. We have e-commerce. I recently collaborated, 3 years ago, I collaborated with Federation of Made to Measure France, where we had a first show in Paris. And it wasn't a show for saris, but it was a show for textiles and how our textiles can be used in French wedding industry. So we broke all sorts of stereotypes around how a white can be worn for evening wear, how cotton can be worn for a wedding, how you can reverse the fabric and you can wear it, and all sorts of these things. And the idea is to break all stereotypes around sari and make it a limitless opportunity, and really take our textiles and our weavers international, to make them have faith that they are engineers of textiles, and they're not just mere poor people who are weaving the sari and the rich are exploiting them. So with that, we of course launched another collection of westerns. I am hoping to have my collection out internationally, and yeah, that's my journey. And I'm all of 29 at this point of time. 8 years in the business, there is no stopping. Yeah, so that's been my journey, Umang.
Palak, I have seen your product. I've known you for years, and we share as a space as neighbors. But I must say that the shopping experience at Ekaya is unique. But I would also please like to tell you how you are working with contemporary fashion designers and creating weaves and your new collections. I've seen some of those things. Very beautiful. It is no longer that the sari is only for the a certain age bracket, or or a certain the urban elite is no longer wearing a sari. That you're breaking that idiom and making it very, very, very beautiful, where a very urban chic woman can be in an Ekaya sari at a cocktail party and be cutting edge.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, for that purpose, Ekaya was actually the first brand in the country, first textile brand in the country to have collaboration with designers. Now, the reason why we did it is because, let's say for Umang, let's say for example, you've been doing a certain thing all your life. So you tend to have preconceived notions, you tend to have limitations, you tend to have stereotypes on how a particular product should be. The minute you get an outsider, let's say for example, I get Aditya to be like, Aditya, come work with Banaras, with Banarsi Textiles. Now he'll come with no preconceived notions, he'll come with newer ideas. And if he may be experimental, he'll be like, Palak, can we do this? And the minute you're asking questions, and if the recipient is okay with experimenting, comes a whole beautiful product which has never been created before. So for the first time ever, we ended up collaborating with designers like Abraham and Thakur, Archana Rao, we did Masaba. And I choose designers in the way that they add something new to the textile.
And yes, and I've seen those collections. They're fantastic. It's so contemporary, and yet hand woven by Banarasi weavers.
They're fresh. I feel like they're fresh, and I feel like the minute you pick up designers from a certain age, who are targeting a certain age bracket, you tend to also target the age grab. You tend to target their consumers as well.
Absolutely.
And they can carry it.
Thank you for taking the Banarasi weavers, and their saris and their products to a new age, taking a 5,000-year-old legacy into 2020 and many, many years ahead. With God bless you.
No, my children, your children, all of us are going to be seeing it. This isn't dying very soon.
The new journey has begun, and begun very well.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll be surprised, but silk brocades, have been written about in our Rig Veda as well, weaving silk and zari together. And from that time, and in the world fair, Caesar had to tax during the Roman Empire. Caesar had to put a tax on Indian goods because it was draining the Roman economy. Roman ships were coming here and taking Indian silks and brocades in such large numbers that Caesar had to put a ban on it. Think about it. So from ancient times to modern days, our weavers have spun magic and woven magic, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now that we've done wool in the north and silk from Benares with Palak, let's go to the west, the sands and the suns of Rajasthan. And can we have Vidhi Singhania? Hi, Vidhi.
Hi.
To have Vidhi on this show is one of a very unique honor, because she is, and I'm humbled to have her because her achievements, she's much more senior to me. I've known her parents, her grandparents, her brother, and the entire family. I've been privileged to know them. And Vidhi was one of the first to start this journey, coming from an industrial family and having industries in Kota, and working with a fabric and a fiber, which at that time people considered, you know, not high end, the Kota Doria. You know, and what she has done and taken with that journey, with simplicity and her humility, is a story all must hear. May I request you, Vizi, to share your journey with us and inspire generations of Indians, young Indians?
At the onset, Umang, I want to thank you for having me today. I know your own sense of design and refinement in when it comes to your work has been something I've admired all along. And I'm privileged to be part of this evening. Would you like me to run through the journey as it's...
You see, because of we have to keep other mics mute, including mine. So we are not going to go to a question answer because it will disrupt the transmission. Hence, it's going to be a monologue with your grace.
Sure. Well, I've been born and brought up in Bombay, as you know, and my father belongs to Rajasthan. Rajasthan for me has always had a very close connect, to be honest. And I must share with you that I've not been trained this line. I got into it, I would say, sheer destiny. And I would say that my memories with textile, I think textile has been part of my DNA. My mother, who's always been draped in the most exquisite saris and wears them so elegantly, I think has been something which I've always admired. I've seen my father wear his bangalas with safas for very special occasions. I believe when I was a little baby, my mother took me to Delhi from Bombay, and my grandmother came to meet me at the airport with a satgas katush, which she wrapped me in. So I think when I look at textiles, and even the family I got married into in Kanpur, there are temples which have beautiful poshaks, and as a bride, one was always given these beautiful chunris with gota for every occasion, you know, whether it was marriage, childbirth, a mundan. So I think textiles is just part of my DNA. But I must tell you that I got into this. My mother visited Kota once when I had to shift there in 1994. And at that point, it was for work more than anything, for my husband's work. And when she visited, she said, "Why don't you work with these weavers?" And I said, "No, Mom, I want to be in the corporate world. I don't see myself doing this," you know, to bring back what you said a little while ago. And I guess destiny has its own story. I started a small line when I shifted to Kota in 94. And that was purely that Kota is not what it is today. It was not an education center. It was almost the back of beyond with a few industries, big industries. And I realized that every time somebody was visiting, I had nothing to give them, nowhere to take them. So I started working with a small line of corporate gifting while I was there. And that's about it. And initially, I got calls again that people wanted a few more pieces. And the weavers started coming to me and saying, "Can you help our son get a job elsewhere?" And that sort of made me feel that India as a country with 40 million people in the weaving industry, second to agriculture. And here are people who have this beautiful history and heritage behind them, and they're looking for other avenues. This pained me. And I realized that if I could sit with them and actually work, you know, giving my ideas and little aesthetics and have them translate it with their ability and their skills, I think is something where we could develop something completely new. So it would be very pompous to say that I developed Kota. Kota was always there, the fabric, and it always existed. But yes, by giving this little input of color, design, and most importantly, a platform and a brand, I think we gave it that fashion statement, made it an avant-garde statement, gave it that little oomph, and made it also belong to the luxury segment. And I think it's very important to promote our heritage, and to protect our weavers and give them that very important platform. And then that's how brand Vidhi was born. And the logo is written the way my father writes my name. And for me, that's a very big blessing. I've always taken my work as a prayer. I've never considered it work, to be honest. It's so deep a passion as far as I'm concerned. And for me, it's very important that the looms are running throughout the year. A one-time show has no meaning. It's been now 23 years in this line. And it's also like the sea. The more you do, the more there is to do. The deeper you go, you just sort of, you feel you've scratched the surface. But I feel happy for me, the moments are when I find that the weavers are calling back and before an exhibition and saying, "Hum aapke liye dua mang rahe hain, we want you to be successful." You realize how many lives are linked with your work. And for me, the inspiration is anything. It could be the Bandhanwar on a door. It could be the Pushkar Mela. It could be Mughal architecture. It could be the serenity of Buddhist chants. I mean, I get inspired by everyday life. And I get inspired by the colors of India. I mean, I work with the blacks and the grays and the indigos, but I love the haldi, the mehendis, the kumkums. And I think this journey has been something that has made me realize another part of me, Umang. And I think that's what's most important. And I do thank God that he was able to probably steer my future the way he did. And I'm very grateful to the weavers of this country. I've also worked a little bit now with Chanderi and Banaras, though my love and forte lies in Kota.
You know, like you said, you've been inspired by the colors of India. And I've seen your Kotas, and I have also gone to Kota as a very young boy, you know, and been to Singhania factories there, and the Shri, I mean, and so many big industries, and the nuclear power plant over there, and barren lands. And then to see how your products have emerged from there, and the Kota Doria, you know, which was cotton, basically, you know, cotton and zari, you have transformed into a luxurious fabric with your sensitivity and guiding the weavers who translate your ideas into this poetic dream. You know, it's really a story that will inspire generations of our country's younger generations who will follow your inspiration. You know, may you always find success. You know.
Thank you. I do hope that the younger generation understands what it is, and I hope that fashion tomorrow turns not just to what's in and what's out, but to what is the classicism, the continuity, sustainable fashion, and something that you can wear again and again with pride and hand over down the generations as an heirloom. Just appreciate and understand the importance of our textiles and saris.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vidhi, and for all your time. And
I have a few slides, I think. Maybe
please, we would love to see please share your beautiful products. We must do that.
Vijay Lakshmi, if you would please share my slides.
Kotiji?
Please go ahead. This is just all in Kota, as you can see, and you can move ahead, Vijay Lakshmi, it's fine. It's just giving an idea of what we've tried to do with Kota. You can move ahead, thank you. It's the quality inputs. I also worked now with this movie, The Warrior Queen of Jhansi. It's a Bollywood film in which I had to weave these Navvari saris, which are 9 gaz. And this was a very interesting experience because there was a lot of focus on the costumes, and working with Rani of Jhansi, very emancipated lady of her time, I think it was a very exhilarating experience.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Umang. It's been a
No, I
pleasure.
mean, every time I meet you and I see your product, I get an inner sense of peace and serenity, and it's just like seeping into a world of its own.
Thank you so much. I've been really happy to be part of this.
Namaskar. Thank you, Vidhi. Friends, now that we have even covered the sands of Rajasthan, let's go to the southern coasts of India, where the Indian Ocean, and the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea meet us. To go to the coast, and on the coast, the most important city, Chennai, and a very young boy from there who has taken this humble khadi or hand-woven cottons of India and made them so stylish that people at Bergdorf Goodman and Neiman Marcus line up to get his products. Prasan Shah, can we have you with us, please?
Yeah, can you hear me, Umang?
Yes, we can hear you. So Prasan has also inherited a legacy of working with fabrics, and after coming back from his education in Europe and England and to the Fineness school, he went to Gordon's son, where Prince Charles went to study, and after doing all that, he now works with the humble weavers of Chennai in South India, giving them ethical fashion and support with his foundations that his father also manages, and taking them to the corners of the world. He is showing his collection at Petit Umo, which is the world's largest menswear fashion fair in the world. And people were lining up to meet him. What a proud moment that was. Prasan, I was very, very proud of you. I mean, to take this cotton fabric and make it a luxury statement in the best stores of the world is a success story that you must share with everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Umang, for having me, and lovely to meet all the panelists as well. And just to give you guys a little bit of background on how this company started, and then a little bit about the history of Madras as well. So like Mr. Umang mentioned, this is a family-run business. It was started by my grandfather about 50 years ago, whereas the company, Original Madras Trading Company as a brand, is quite new. And we actually launched about a year ago in June at Petit Umo in Florence. And that was our very first season. Even though we've been in the industry for 50 years, we've predominantly been makers for other brands, which seems to be the recent history of India, has always been making for others. And that was something that we as a family and as a business wanted to change. And coming into my family business about a few years ago, I started having conversations with my father, who's still very much actively involved. And we came up with this idea of really reviving the craft of hand weaving Madras. And so traditionally, Madras was hand woven here in Madras, now Chennai, on hand looms. And everything you see in the industry today is machine loom, and more recently, not even made in Madras. So you're buying Madras from China or Bangladesh or Portugal, and it's very rare that you're seeing real Madras from Madras. And so with that idea in mind, we were keen to revive this craft, because Madras as a city and as a place and for its history with textiles got us as a family and a business where we are today. So we were very keen to give back, but at the same time, create a very refined line. And so when my grandfather started the business in the early 70s, all we made were Madras checks for the American market. I'm not going to name names, but for everybody that was sort of famous for the bleeding Madras and handloom Madras in the early 70s, we were one of the key makers and exporters of Madras from India. Over time, the family business diversified. We didn't just make Madras checks, but we made a range of men's clothing, women's clothing, and kids wear. And we continue to do that today. But with this project specifically, the entire collection is Madras checks, hand woven in Madras. And we've been very lucky in that we had a fantastic launch. We were welcomed into stores in Japan, South Korea, all over Europe, from Milan to Paris to London, to stores in the US as well. So it's quite special to have been able to revive that craft. And as a young third generation coming in, it's just exciting for me to be able to build from that legacy. But at the same time, like I said, we see this very much as a global Western fashion line. And even with the team that we have, it's equally Indian as it's equally Western. Our creative director is Canadian and he lives in Madrid and visits India often and works with us and the weavers to create this line. So it's quite special to be able to do this. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions, Umang, that you might have.
Yes, I met Prasan in Milan, in fact, at the Petit Ubo Fair. And he had his stall and I was walking by and I saw it. I was so impressed because there was one Indian brand that was started with working with our cotton and our weavers, standing right there, proud and tall, in the middle of all the Italian and global brands. And this young boy, with great confidence, selling his wares to the best stores of the world. Very, very proud of you, Prasan. I was very happy to see that. And may you find greater success. And I wish a lot of youngsters will follow this line of ethical fashion and take it forward. God bless you. Can you please show us some images? I know because it's not just weavers, you also make very smart clothing. You have some slides of smart, what I saw in Petit Umo, smart jackets and shirts and things which said at Bergdorf Goodman and Neiman Marcus. I remember the merchandise of Bergdorf Goodman speaking very highly about you. Sure. So please share to the world, the beautiful things that you make.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I never shared this PowerPoint before, so will I be able to share my screen, Ms. Vijayalakshmi?
Yes, you can.
Okay, just give me 1 second. So I just quickly pulled this up. This is just a mini lookbook that we were showing at the shows, Umang, and I'm happy to show you a couple more images if you'd like. So a few images.
Yes, because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely. So this is our first lookbook from our spring-summer 2020 season, which are in stores, in 45 stores today around the world. And so, like I said, absolutely everything is hand-woven in the entire collection. And we're also making and selling some lungis internationally as well.
Isn't that fantastic? Selling lungis internationally. Now, that's fantastic.
Thank you. That's all I've got for the time being.
Yes, but it gives you an idea that even a lungi can be stylish in world over, but Absolutely. It has to be hand woven, handmade, and marketed by Mr. Prasan Shah. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
So here we have we've had really 4 great Indian cultural and textile revivalists from Kashmir to Chennai and from Banaras to Kota. And they've shown what they all make. The common thread, the warp and weft of this entire discussion is their dedication to excellence and refinement. Their vision to start a brand, a global brand, whether it is Ekaya or it is, can we have all the panelists, we can see everybody, is it possible?
Yes, they can all turn on their videos.
Because, all 4 of them, inherited a legacy. They were working with, had education in finance. So I studied entrepreneurship and finance and worked on Wall Street, and now I'm dedicated to design. The common thread here is the emotion and dedication to work with craftsmen, to bring refinement, take an Indian product, and not just be a supplier, a generic supplier to world markets, but make a brand, an Indian luxury brand, and take it to the consumers with pride. And with the profits that they make, I've noted all 4 of them and many more, God bless them, continue to use these profits for the betterment of the community that makes them, the weavers and that. That is also a very important part, because glamour must percolate down to the grassroots. And the people who weave them, these 40 million of weavers of our nation, must be given patronage and livelihood. Yeah. With that, I would like to thank Vijayalakshmi ji and our panelists, and we'd like to open this for questions. If anybody anywhere would like to have a question, or for any one of our panelists.
There is a question for Prasan Shah. Somebody is asking why his products are not sold in India.
It's a very good question, and I think I know who the question is from. I think it's from you directly. To be very frank, I was first introduced to Madras, of course, here with my family business here in Chennai factory, but globally, I really saw it when I spent time in the US. I studied at university in Boston, not too far from the same university that Mr. Umang went to as well. And really, Madras became famous internationally because of this very Ivy League, Northeastern American preppy look. And that's when I was first introduced to it. And that's when I first saw a market for it. And personally, like Palak had mentioned and some of the other panelists as well, I don't see why Indian crafts bought globally at the same level as crafts that are coming out of Europe or crafts that are coming out from the US as well. So it was really with that idea that we decided to actually launch it in the West through our office in New York. But trust me, there are plans to be available in India very, very soon. We're working on it.
Very nice. Yeah.
One more question. How can we make textiles affordable to common people and let them adopt it as creative products, especially saris, which have emotional attachment?
Who would you like to ask this question to?
They've not addressed, but maybe Palak or Vidhiji, they can address it because they've been in this space.
Yeah.
Vidhiji, if you want to go, you can
Palak,
go.
Go ahead. Palak, go ahead.
Okay. I feel the saris are affordable, but unfortunately, the amount of effort that goes into it, you'll have to pay the price for handloom, and that comes at a certain price. Of course, we can start making more simpler saris, but I feel many times consumers are looking at more expensive saris for a cheaper price because of the power loom options that are available, which becomes unfair to the weaver because the weavers will have to compromise somewhere or the other, and they're competing with power loom at that point of time. So I think yes, overcharging for it is wrong, but charging the right amount is going to be even more expensive than what the masses can get for a very heavy sari. But it is what it is. I mean, either they choose a more simpler option or we try and play around with simpler techniques. But like handloom is expensive because it requires hours and effort by the weavers, etc.
May I add to that?
Yes, please.
I think we have all ranges. We have the lower range as well, which is available today when you go into a Dilli Haat or you walk into a Crafts Council exhibition. Do you find beautiful saris, beautiful handlooms at very reasonable rates? But yes, when you are looking for a branded sari with a certain design input, or a certain real zari input, or say the time where you may require 3-4 months of weaving, then definitely the price factor does go up.
So just another question. Approximately to be one kotha sari, how long does it take a weaver?
Well, it depends. If it's a very simple sari, then he could be doing it maybe 15 days. But if it's a very intricate sari, like a very a sort of a brocade, which requires, and he could be running the sari for almost 4 months.
Yeah,
So,
I asked this question basically because people do not understand, the labor for 15 days, what it costs, and added to that, the cost of the establishment, their threads, etc. And if people want a 300 or 400 rupee sari, which is handmade, it doesn't really work.
Absolutely. We have to honor the labor that the craftspeople put in.
no, and these are artists at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You're working with artists. They're supporting their families. So we have to understand that there is a certain cost involved.
See, I had this, I do want to share this experience. I was called to speak at a It was some gathering of women who were trying to help weavers, they said. And I said, I really don't know about weaving per se, but I know about the importance of the tradition of weaving. I said, that I can come and speak about. And so they had a whole line of, this was in a 5-star facility, and they had a whole line of weavers with their wear. Well, I mean, they were making this sincere effort, thinking that people would buy their products. And they introduced me to all of them. And then there was one particular weaver that they introduced me to and said that, oh, even though he is a weaver, his children are going to engineering school. I didn't want to, I just kept quiet. And after that, we moved to the conference room. And once again, all the weavers came in and they started introducing them. And once again, it was the same thing. Oh, even though he's a weaver, his children are going to engineering school. After that, the weavers went out because I didn't want to say something when they were there. And I began and I asked them, I said, don't get me wrong, if I ask you, you are trying to encourage weavers and their communities here, right? They said, yes. I said, but it's sad that, you did exactly the opposite just now. Why is weaving, why do you have to say it as if weaving is something less? I mean, to me, I believe that weaving is physics, chemistry, and maths. It's just that we don't look at it like that. I mean, I dabbled with some designing and, I gave it to somebody. I said, just get it printed because I was trying to interpret Kalidasa's work into design. And she went ahead and she, got it woven. And that was when I realized how many thousands of threads go into this weaving. I mean, till then I didn't know about it. And I said, it's mind-boggling. She said, even for them to put the design together, which is new, it takes, how long it takes. I said, well, that's a lot of math there. And there's a lot of chemistry in the dyes. And then if you don't have your loom set in the right manner, it's not going to be moved. So that is physics. Why is it we are not able to look at our own crafts with this eye? I don't know. And another question for you, Mr. Kitroo. What is the actual price of a real Pashmina shawl? Because, you go to different stores, they claim it's Pashmina and the prices vary from 1,000 to 50,000. So, I mean, it's just so that people know, what is really Pashmina and what goes into that.
See, I can't really put a price to it because it depends on who the retailer is. But just to say some really basic things, first of all, it's not a very, very cheap fabric because the wool itself that goes into a standard shawl would probably be around 3,000 rupees. So all the Pashminas for $10 or 2,000 rupees are not Pashminas. So, it's a lot higher than that. And you can't get the fabric for cheap. It's as simple as that. And to give an idea of the price range, it depends on how good the cloth is and who the retailer is, obviously, and the branding around it. But I would say it has to be a minimum of 10, like the most minimum. And then, of course, the higher the quality, it will go higher. But you can't really put a price on it because the other factors that are involved.
No, but a range. Tell us a range. I mean,
the most expensive, if a really grand piece has to be made, and some of the pieces that we worked on, we spent up to 3 lakhs on making certain pieces, even 3.5 lakhs on making single pieces. And these are just 1 meter by 2 meter cloth. That's it.
And Umang, can you just share? I'm sorry to interfere. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Aditya. You were saying something.
No, I'm actually done.
Okay. Umang, can you just share what you do? You haven't spoken about yourself at all.
Well, when I'm in the league of, such exceptional people, I like to be a little more cautious because I still have lots to achieve. I'm still working on my way there, I have worked, I did my entrepreneurship and I studied in Boston. I lived abroad for 22 years. I even worked on Wall Street and I came back to India. And one of the companies that my ancestors started, in fact, in about 130 years ago, it was in 1835, when there was a great famine of Gujarat to give employment to craftspeople. And they looked after 600,000 people from that time. And they started Hutheesing Design Company. We are the oldest design company of Asia. And I'm the 5th generation. running it. We work in various mediums, and we have had the honor and privilege to do the interiors of the White House, as well as Queen Victoria's home, the Osborne House in the Isle of Wight, her palace. And 5 generations later, I was again commissioned to do panels for Roosevelt House, and I did a show at Buckingham Palace for Her Majesty the Queen. I have been lucky to have worked with my craftsmen and with the products they have made. I have been able to showcase our products in more than 6 international museums. 300 pieces have been displayed for 5 months. It's not a fashion show, museum show. And all my shows have been dedicated to the unknown master craftsmen and women of India. And the success has been very, very enriching. For example, in Mexico, for the Baroque Museum, which opened 2 years ago, is the most technologically advanced museum on earth. And it won the Pulitzer Prize for its architecture designed by Toyo Ito, the architect of Japan. On the opening day, we had about 10,000 people. First week, 60,000. And in the first 3 months, we had more than 5 lakh people visit the show. This is made in India to the world. And it was very fulfilling. I do give lectures in various universities. I love teaching. And I give free lectures and teach free in municipal schools. And during these times, the last 5 months, I have become more of a farmer than a fashion designer. I consider myself more a revivalist, a philanthropist, and if God is kind, a humble and a good human being.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was a wonderful session, and it's really nice to meet young people taking forward our tradition of weaving. Arunima?
Yeah. Before we come to an end, there are 2 questions that I'll stitch together for the entire panel. One, how has the scenario of business been due to the COVID situation? And if all of you could share your vision for the next 5 years in the textile and the fashion industry, from where we are to where we will be. I think that'll be a good way to conclude.
Absolutely. We'll start with Aditya and go to no, but we have to be quick. Your vision for the future.
Sure. So the first point you said about the COVID situation, I'm sure it's affected everyone in some way or the other. The textile industry as such, there has been a slowdown, but of course there's this, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what we are looking at and how to get there as quick as possible. When it comes to the future, I think handmade has a good future, because what COVID has also done, it has accelerated this want for things that are more emotional or more handmade per se. So there is a shift in consumer behavior that we've noticed, which has also been published in certain later studies by, I think it was a McKinsey study which mentioned it. So the future is good. Definitely there's been a setback for everyone, but we have to look at the light at the end of the tunnel and walk towards that and do the best that we can. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Give us a 1-line vision statement. 1 line.
A vision statement for myself, right?
Yes, your brand, where you see, we talked to the past and the history and the wars that were fought. Now we want to see the peace that this will bring.
Okay, so there's a small village called Dab, which is in the north of Kashmir. It has some of the best Kani weavers in the country. The vision is to take Dab to every place in the world. That is the vision. To take Dab, a place that didn't have electricity 5 years ago, to every part of the world. That could be the vision statement.
Wonderful. Yeah. By giving them support, education, healthcare, and taking the international market and resources to improve their lives and livelihoods.
Absolutely. Social impact is imperative, Umang.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Aditya. Palak?
Hi. Of course, speaking of COVID, the businesses have been affected. I feel wholesale more than retail. Retail has begun to pick up. I feel because I luckily are like Vidhi and like myself and Aditya as well as Prasan, I feel like we offer something that can be passed on from generation to generation. making it more sustainable and timeless rather than more trendy. And I feel like people are in the mood right now to spend on more sustainable and more sort of items that can be passed around, that can be sort of worn in different ways than buying something trendy. So I feel like business is going to pick up and has begun to pick up. And I see a great deal of future in this business. If I were to say my vision for the next 5 years, I mean, I'm currently aiming to create India's first luxury brand, India's own Louis Vuitton, India's own Hermes. So hopefully in the next 5 years, I can diversify my products and create, with the help of the weavers, create products beyond your regular saris and your westerns, etc., to perhaps get more accessories, home, and really like seep into all the international markets and cater to the global audience rather than just the Indians abroad.
Yeah, true. You know, talking of creating a luxury company,
Yeah.
do you know, but you said the first luxury company. What? Do you know, have you heard of Tiffany & Co?
Absolutely.
Is it a luxury company?
Yes.
Tiffany is America's top brand.
Yeah.
Do you know, in 1881, Louis Tiffany and my great-grandfathers co-founded Tiffany & Co. And we are founding partners for 32 years from Ahmedabad. And we won,
Yes.
and we won 9 gold medals.
Your grandfather?
Yeah, my great-grandfather.
Wow.
Tiffany & Co. was founded here. And when the Grand Palais was built in Paris in 1900 to have the World Expo, where the Jubilee Diamond was also presented, we won 9 gold medals as the finest design firm in the world.
Fabulous.
From Ahmedabad. You know, so yes, but with time, things change. And in this generation, Godspeed, take it forward.
Thank you.
Brilliant. That's the vision you must have. Make India's luxury brands across the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you. You know, Vidhi?
Yeah, it's on. Well, I would say that for me, it's COVID, of course, has affected all work, and it's going to take some time before we can limp back to normalcy. Again, coming back to the fact that textiles, and especially the work we do, is sustainable fashion. At this point, people would not be looking for what's in, what's out. I think they're happy being home the way they have to, and they would look for products which they can buy, which they could use for a long time and enjoy year after year. And I think my vision, if I look at it, is more to educate the new generation as to what value our textiles have and what they really mean to take it forward, to understand the meaning of sustainable fashion and classicism. That's very important to me. And to give these weavers work throughout. I think this is my only vision. I've worked with this line for 23 years, and I really don't plan too far ahead. I take each day as it comes. Thank you.
No, Vidhi is a grandmother of such beautiful children that one would hardly believe. She looks just like out of a NIFT graduation, you know. Absolutely. Your youthful energy is so encompassing, but your passion for your people and your humility and simplicity to work in the hot weaving houses of Kota and care for your weavers as your family is something that is really endearing and wins you every prize in every book.
Thanks, Umang. Thank you so much.
And, you know, we go to Prasan in Chennai, east, west, north, south, the 4 corners of India. Prasan?
So similar to like everybody else said, I mean, absolutely COVID has affected the industry we're in. But what I will say is I think it's accelerated a market for the kinds of products that we're making with a more conscious, I think, customer base that you're going to see in a post-COVID world, whatever that might look like. And I think the vision, to keep it as brief as possible, is for us as a brand, Original Madras Trading Company, would be to stand shoulder to shoulder with all of these respected global brands that you see today, and at the same time to be able to train the next generation of weavers. And that's what sort of keeps me going and keeps me inspired about this project.
Yes, and mean, you are the youngest of this panel, and you are the generation of young Indians that is grown up with the responsibility and the privilege as equals across the world. And we, as an older generation, look very proudly to see, the beacons of India shine in the best stores of the world. And with that also, fulfilling social responsibility and care for your weavers. Yeah. So with all that, we are approaching 7 o'clock, our time to end. And I greatly appreciate Vijay Lakshmi ji, if you could conclude with your grace.
Thank you so much to all the panelists here. Each of your concluding remarks can lead to a fresh conversation. There's no end to it. I think we can maybe plan a session completely dedicated to this space. And I personally feel that fashion or textiles are the best form of representing the national aesthetics, just by wearing it or by carrying it with us wherever we go. With that, thank you so much to all of you. It was a truly enriching and an enjoyable session that we learned and we'll take away with us. Thank you so much.
UNESCO and World Craft Council that invited me to give a talk. And I got a wonderful standing ovation from almost everybody who was there. And the statement was simple. The future of luxury is handmade. That was my statement at the World Craft Council at UNESCO. And that is, India will prove that to be true. Thanks to leaders and youngsters like all of these we met on our panel. Thank you very much, Vijay Lakshmi ji, for inviting us and giving us this chance and this opportunity with soft power that India has and the power that it will become. Or it
Thank you very much.